welcome to this Struggles to Success podcast with Dr. Emmanuel. It's a pleasure to welcome you for this podcast. The podcast is all about sharing lessons from people who have had struggles but turned it into success. And it's such an honor to welcome all of you who follow this podcast. The podcast is becoming more and more successful, more popular. People are subscribing, liking, sharing. And so it's really, really, really heartwarming to see how popular the podcast is becoming. So thank you all for the support. But I also want to acknowledge all of you, acknowledge you because you are investing time in your own personal development to learn this life skill, the skill of turning struggles into success. So I am Emmanuel Nsutebu. I'm Dr. Emmanuel. I am an infectious disease physician. So I'm a doctor, and my day job is looking after people with suspected or confirmed infection and often quite complex infection. And I work in Abu Dhabi. However, in my spare time, if there's anything like spare time, I am also on a mission. And that mission is to teach people, motivate, inspire people to use struggles to become better, stronger, and more successful because it's an essential life skill. And you learn that early. And if children learn that early, then I can assure you they will be more successful in whatever they like to do personally or professionally. And so this is the ethos of the podcast. I'm also an author of a book called From Struggles to Success. And I'll ask you to also buy the book, purchase the book. It's available on Amazon and any other publishing platforms. We also do this podcast, but we also are working on an online course which will be coming soon, and that will be something you should look out for. In addition to that, if you need public speaking or coaching, please get in touch. With that, I want us to just take some time to reflect on why this skill is important. Now, look back at your own life and just reflect for a second and look at all the struggles you've had. Life is like an ocean with waves, ups and downs. And you can either sink when you're hit by a wave, or you can use it to propel yourself. You can surf, or you can learn how to swim. And that's what great people do. That's what great teams do. They use all the struggles in life to become better, stronger, and more successful. And that's why the skill is so important. And so we are on a mission to change lives, on a mission to get everybody to practice and develop this skill of using struggles to become more successful. And so on this podcast, we invite special people, special guests, people who have experience of turning struggles into success, because you can learn from your own experience. However, and a wiser person learns from other people's experience. So don't make the same mistakes others have made. And that's why we do this podcast. And so I go out and invite ordinary people with extraordinary lives, and they come and tell their stories, and they share their lessons. And that's what makes a difference. And so I'm super excited today to have Mr. Vally Mbawa, who is a friend, a brother, well known in the Cameroonian community in the UK. And he is somebody who has multiple sort of facets, multiple strengths. He is a senior IT consultant and also project manager with over 17 years of experience. He works in London, and he will tell us more about his job in a minute. But he's also a mentor and coach, which is the focus of this podcast. He is a CEO of Stepwise Careers, his own company, so he's an entrepreneur, and they train people developing IT skills, but also mentoring and coaching them to get into jobs. And so I'm sure he's going to tell us more about that. But he's also a community man. He's a family and community man, and has a very beautiful family that I know. His wife, Inda, who owns also a business and a hot chili sauce business. and daughters that are super talented and also write books. They're writers and doing also exceptionally well. So you can see that he coaches other people, but he's also a family person and coaching his family, wife and children to also be successful. And so it's really a great honor and pleasure to have him on this show. So, Vali, you're very welcome.
Wow, thank you, my brother and friend, Dr. Nsutebu. I don't know for the purpose of this, it would be hard for me to call you Dr. Nsutebu because I think from for all our existence. This is the very first time I've used that title, but officially, yes, for the purpose of this podcast. Thank you for the invite and for the absolutely warming intro, and to yourself for giving the opportunity, giving this platform, and not just giving it, but being able to support it and offer situations like this where folks like myself can come onto it and share experiences to the wider audience, to the likes of the people who come from the same places like ourselves, from people who want to walk the same journey like we've walked, for people who are even aspiring to be like yourself and myself and others out there. So thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I look forward to our chat this evening.
Thank you, Vali. So I gave a bit of an intro about yourself, and I wonder whether you want to say a bit more. Tell us more about yourself.
Oh, absolutely. So, as you rightly say, I'm Valentine Bawa. I live in Northampton, England, with I'm married and to a beautiful wife and three beautiful children. But of course, we're going to talk more about where I come from and where what has brought me to this platform. But yeah, I worked as an IT consultant, as you said, as a senior IT consultant, a role I've been doing for just over 17 years. And that involves managing project transformations through business change and project management, and just seeing projects from start up to right through to implementation, supporting all facets of the project within the IT space, and mainly in financial and insurance sector. I currently work with Liberty Mutual as self-employed a senior product analyst slash scrum master, which is one of the things again we'll talk about. It's one of the IT courses that I do teach, but I happen to also work in that role at the moment, and that role I've been at for over 2 years. As an aside, like yourself, when time does permit, away from the 9 to 5, I'm also the CEO of Stepwise Careers. So Stepwise Careers was created back in 2014, and that was purely on the back of me looking around, having being in IT, and the focus was really to get my fellow Cameroonians up the IT ladder, because I was in a position where I could recruit people and manage people, and every time I sent CVs, there was none from the Cameroon community, and then the
Wow.
idea came up to create Stepwise Careers, which is really, as the name stipulates, stepwise, to get our folk up the IT ladder, because I see that it was a quite an easy way to gain IT experience, where you eventually put yourself in a place where you gain a bit more financial benefits, which will not only change your life but change the lives of your family and your family's family. So I created Stepwise Careers, starting off teaching just training just as software testing, but then, like everything everything else in life, you evolve with time, and then we eventually moved into Scrum Master. But the core of that side of things is really the coaching and mentoring, because and you yourself is something you do yourself. When you learn something or when you train on something, um, getting that experience which will then spur you to that next level is something that you don't get by sitting in a class and doing 3 days, 1 week, or 5 months, 6 months training. You really need someone to then teach you the ropes, someone who will tell you exactly how he or she walked that journey, what mistakes they make, what you can foresee, what are the challenges, and how you can overcome them. And this is where the coaching part of Stepwise Career comes in, because once we train you, then there is the other side of right getting a professional looking CV for you, and then training you how to find work, how to get to recruitment consultants, talk to them, and eventually up to the interview stage. And that's not just with Scrum Master or software testing. It is with business analyst, project management, anyone. I've talked to
Wow.
I've talked to someone who's left university when I'm and managed a pub for 15 years and then wanted to change course. So I do
Wow.
talk to all sorts of people. So apart from stepwise, then there is the support with the girls. So the girls, when they were 10 and 11, they wrote their books. So my first daughter Kirsten wrote Sagas of Anya, which is a Victorian historical fiction book, and then
Amazing.
Avon wrote Land of the Neurogans, which is an action adventure book. And then that came just on the back of COVID, and then they were thinking of how they could really market that. But yeah, I would touch because this is really one of the struggle that there's so many experiences that we'll touch on when we get there. But
Mhm.
on the back of that, they launched the book subscription, which was mainly to create diversity because they've realized that there are absolutely a higher percentage of seeing a monkey in a book or an animal in a book than a black child. So they started the subscription book, which is really to improve diversity, create awareness by including diverse books within their boxes. So there's that management of that bit, and then of course, as a family man, oh well. I didn't talk about the wife's business. There's Echo as well. I'm the operational director, operational manager that I do all sorts of things to get that out of the door. And then there's the day-to-day running of the family. And
Wow.
yeah, but when everything else is quiet, in my older days, I was a DJ, so I would in all of this I would go out and do DJing on Saturday, but that has
Mhm.
since died now as a
Wow.
result of
Amazing.
someone telling me that I'm overworked. So yeah, that's me in a
Amazing.
nutshell.
Amazing. So, Vali, we see a successful person professionally, IT, project management. You own your own
Yeah.
company, training and coaching people within IT and project management. Then also really lovely, successful family. Wife also doing well with her job and also entrepreneur as with her business. And daughters is really excelling in school, writing books, and so really, really successful. And I tell people whenever you look at people success, you don't know how they got there. And often also with social media these days, all they see is success. They don't actually know your story.
Mm.
And so this platform is really also to share your story and inspire people to learn how to use the difficulties they've had as opportunities to become better, stronger, and more successful. So I wonder whether you want to share some of your story. Tell us how you got to where you are now, and was it an easy ride?
Oh, how much time have we got, Emma? So one thing I say to myself is that I don't I don't use the word success. I use the word this far, right? Because what most of us tend to do, or for speaking for self, what I tend to do is if I think that I've achieved, I can easily plateau. And once you plateau, then the next thing that can only happen is that snowball effect, and then you find yourself bouncing down, right? And it get to a point where the momentum is really, really fast, and then before you know it, you are right down there. So to keep me going, keep me aspiring, keep me focused on achieving more, I always say this is what has brought me this far. So I would tell you the story of the journey that has brought me this far. And
Absolutely.
coming from where we come from, I don't think anything is easy. I know people have struggles and people have challenges, and even within struggles, there are challenges and there are bridges that we have to cross. But um, I the word humble beginning is sparingly used, right, or is understated. I come from a place where I mom was we grew up in Bamenda, in one of in the best village in Bamenda called Nkwen. Some people will disagree, but Nkwen is a place where I was born, and mom had so many enterprising entrepreneurial skills, and on the back of that there was no profession. So we were relying on mom's farming and using whatever crops she could cultivate and sell, and to then turn that into some entrepreneurial something that we could do to raise more money. And some of the, just to paint you a picture, I would leave school. I attended Catholic school Futru in Queen. I would leave school sometimes and I would walk. I was really petite when I was younger. When I was young, at the age of maybe when I was in class five in primary school, class five, probably like year year five here or year four. Yeah, I would walk after school under the sun, walk through forest roads, grass field roads to go and help mom in the farm. And when mom finished farming, we would, mom would fetch wood and put on my head as little as I was to bring back, and that wood was fuel for the evening meal. When we
Wow.
get back, I had to go back and fetch water, which we will use to cook the evening meal and for everyone else to bathe with or to wash with because we didn't have showers. So painting this picture so you just can know, and a few people resonate with this and listening to this, and it's an absolute. I couldn't have asked for a better foundation, because what that made me was understood from the very beginning how to face life, how to face challenges, how to be resilient, how
Mhm.
to be persistent. Mom will always tell me, I can't give you this not because I cannot. She worked hard enough for me to get everything that I wanted, but she will give me only when it was absolutely necessary,
Mhm.
making me know that nothing comes easy, making me know that everything that you earn, you achieve has to be earned. And that became a sort of driver. And then I later went to in the secondary schools. I went to BHS Boya, and then we know going through, what schools are in Cameroon, no orientation with anything. I got to Form 3. I decided to branch to sciences, probably because I had some friends who were more science inclined, not really, having any support with regards to the way forward, or how these subjects, this decision that you make is going to eventually shape your tomorrow. Um, went to science. I've realized that was very good in science eventually. Again, finished from BHS Boya, went to University of Boya. Again, no orientation on what to do. I went and started a degree in geology, because again I had I probably, I can't remember what, maybe I registered late or something, and then I really wanted to do life sciences, but they were full. And no, I think that I didn't have the required points. I think at the time they would take about 9 points, and I had about 8 for A levels, so I couldn't get in. So the other alternative was to switch to geology. So I went and studied geology because I wanted to um, to get a degree in university. When I
Wow.
graduated from university, um, I I couldn't, Cameroon being Cameroon with no jobs. This all of these things that I've honed from the time with mom, all this resilience, this probably the entrepreneurial skill as well, because at that time I thought I can't just roam the street of Boya. I know that, of course, the dream was eventually to to get to Europe, of course, for a better life, start a family, and all the good things, that the benefits that come with not being in Cameroon. There are also some absolute exceptional benefits, right? But for from a personal perspective, I needed to get out of Cameroon, and so to do that, I needed to start thinking of how I can generate that money, because at that point, Dad was more concerned about trying to get the younger ones. Come from a family of six from my dad's side and five from my mom's side, and Dad was more struggling to get the younger ones, up to where I was, up to university state, and sorry, and that's very understandable. Pardon me. So when I got to university, I decided to look for ways on how I can raise money so that if the opportunity was to come, then I could have the exit out of Cameroon,
Hmm.
right? So all of those challenges at the time, there was no so I didn't probably didn't think that I didn't even think of success. I didn't even think of achieving anything. I was just living it and going. My aspiration was always to get into IT, because back in Boya, we had a documentation place which my uncle started off, and there was computers, and so all the university students projects were being done there, and I could get myself involved in computer and trying to learn even the back end of it, the hardware of it. So I was
Mm.
quite focused on trying to build an IT knowledge within the IT space. Then eventually things turned, and eventually moved to England, and and the target was always, again, to get into IT. It wasn't easy, because moving into England back in 19 was it 2000 1999, you had to start somewhere. Education had to come back in, because the certification in Cameroon, first of all, it was in geology. It couldn't get me into anything, and I thought, what do I need to do to get up? Right. And
Wow.
then you work the night shifts in warehouses, you work in the coal rooms, you
Vally,
do the things that you
let me
need.
just take the opportunity to just pause a bit there, because there's so much you have
Yeah.
already covered, and I know there's
Okay.
so much to come, and that is related to your journey in the UK. But just focusing a bit on your journey
Yeah.
in Cameroon and the humble beginnings and mom,
Yeah.
the upbringing you have with mom, being an entrepreneur. It's
Yeah.
fascinating because nearly everybody that we have interviewed so far on this podcast tells a story about their childhood and how what they went through as a child really set the foundation
Hmm.
for the future. And either
Yeah.
because of humble beginnings or hard work and giving them that skill, that skill of working hard early, of being able to deal with challenges, being resilient. And I can see from yourself how you developed that very early with mom, but also the entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Now I can understand why the girls, your daughters, are entrepreneurs. I can see why they're
There
doing
you
that, and
go.
how
There you
you
go.
how your
Yeah.
childhood is also inspiring them to do that at a young age and not
Yeah.
leave it till adulthood.
Yeah.
Same with your wife, so you can really see how that is affecting and inspiring your family at the moment. How you bring up the girl, so
Yeah.
fascinating. So I just wanted you to us to just pause and just
Yeah.
reflect on that, and then and then we'll go back to your journey in the UK. You gave us some hints about wanting to do IT, but you had to do a number of different things
Yeah.
before going into IT.
Yeah. Yeah, just on that, just on the journey in Cameroon, I want to say there's so many people that have actually walked this journey, um, and some people, unfortunately, we say this, they may never come on a podcast like yours, because they haven't achieved the status we call success, or they haven't got to the point um, where they can deem to have achieved some level of success, right? And I'm saying this knowing that it's very subjective, but we all know on a level platform um, what success is when we see it. But there's so many people that start this journey and give up halfway, right? I was watching something the other day, and Howard Schultz, who is the CEO of Starbucks, right? When he started, he came from his story was so 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 like my story. He came from nowhere, and he even at one point he sold his blood to get money, right? And then when eventually went into Starbucks, and he went to Italy for something, and he saw how coffee was being made in Italy, came and proposed it to Starbucks. Then they kicked out the idea, and then he eventually um, started his own company. Starbucks went bust. He came back, bought it. Now it's a multi-billion pound company. So a lot of people have gone through this journey. But if anyone listening on this podcast and watching it, the key is to set goals. I always say to people, you have to set expectation, you set goals, you set achievable plans, and then you set to drive those plans. But what most people do is when they set out to drive plans, they don't caveat change. They don't caveat how they can manage change in between, such that when that plan does derail, then it's taking people off guard. But if we know that, like I said, I practice at work, if we are the stakeholders of our own lives, right? And if you hold a stake in your own life, then you have to think of what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what opportunities come into life, and what threats are they. There's a little word I use called the SWOT analysis, and it's something that I use in business analysis, SWOT, your strength, weaknesses,
That's your project
opportunities, and
management
threats. And
expertise coming out there.
that as a project management had come in. Yeah, but yeah, so I think we'll come back and touch with this when we're talking about other how we face them. So coming to UK was a reawakening, right? So this is guy who's come from my phone Quen. He's gone to Boya. Yeah, grew up in Limbe. After secondary school was that moved to Limbe. So I grew up in Limbe, Victoria. Went to school in Boya, and but there's nothing that will compare to when you leave Cameroon and you get into the UK, where suddenly there's so many opportunities, but to get to those opportunities, you can either just do what everyone else does. Like, okay, I'm gonna go do nursing because Emma's wife is doing nursing. I'm gonna go be a carer because X is a carer. I'm gonna go do. I'm gonna own a cleaning company because X is gonna owns a cleaning company, without setting your own objectives. Like I mentioned, your expectations, you're outlining your objectives, setting your own goals, and then going out to drive them, right? Once we live a life to copy others people's life, we don't know their making, we don't know their background, we don't know what is propelling them forward. And when you go and copy a mechanism that you haven't generated, there's a tendency that the drive, you may not have the fuel and the engine to push that mechanism through, and you will fail halfway. So I came in here, there were so many reasons for me, because I had so many friends who were already in the UK. There were so many opportunities for me to just go and say, I'm going to do that. You know, my absolute goal in life, I don't know, I've told you this, was to be a doctor. Right. My absolute dream job was to be a doctor. So when I quickly realized that that was not going to achievable, given the means that I had back in Cameroon, and I got to the UK with so much responsibility. And this is something that, again, will resonate with some of us, right? I have brothers that I need to support. I got into the UK and I'm thinking, do I build a career for myself now and not support mom through everything that she's gone through? Should I then now go and start a medical degree or medical program and then get these people out, not give them a foundation, which by the time I finish this program, they would have long passed the stage would I would have been involved in their life to mold and grow them and give them that foundation to progress? Or can I sacrifice and head straight for a career oriented direction in order to gain get immediate benefit, support myself, start try to think about family and try to think about the extended family? I took the plan B. Plan B to go for a career. So I set off, started, worked in a warehouse. I remember I was doing night jobs and saving as hell, saving as much as I can, because I had these courses that I'd put in my mind that this is what I'm going to do. They were costing a lot of money, and they were guaranteeing you at the time you finish this, you're going to get work straight away. But slowly and steadily, keeping the drive on, keeping focus, keeping that resilience and that work ethic and that mental toughness that I've gained through coming from, and I repeatedly say this, from the foundation. The foundation in anything is absolutely key to how we overcome not just the challenges, not just a struggle, but our tomorrow, right? Because our tomorrow will come with every tomorrow comes with its own new identity. And to be able to overcome that, I need to have the foundation of all of these facets, all of these skill sets, right? And it's a combination of them. And it's a topness of talent, of skill, of everything else. I put all of those together to then propel me forward. So when I started in IT, uh, and then this is where 2 years after starting a role as a software tester, I became a manager straight away. So I was fortunate to go
Wow.
into an organization where I was the first tester. So I went and did this course, right? I did this course for 3 days, and I said to myself, I'm not gonna pretend like I've not done this thing before. So I didn't read. I tried to immerse myself into the role. I tried to immerse myself like I've done the role. So I went for the interview and I spoke from experience. And that experience, fortunately for me, and it was an absolute, I think it was a second interview. So I got the role. Again, just how the mental, how all of the skills that I've mentioned are driving every situation that I find myself. Right. So 2 years down the line, I was med manager, and I was then put in a position to build a bigger team around myself. And this is when I started looking out for
Wow.
Cameroonians, looking out for people that I remember there was a guy in Northampton. I literally, and I'm being biased here, I literally told him that there's a role that is going on, and I wouldn't be the only one interviewing you, but I'm the main person, and I can support with this. This is how the role works. Try to give tips, but because they had someone within the care sector who was more influential than myself, they followed they followed that person. Not that there's absolutely nothing wrong with care, with doing care, but I was trying to offer an opportunity where people can earn a bit more money, slightly more money than they're doing it within the care sector, right? And I know there are people that own care companies and doing absolutely well, and that's absolutely fantastic. But there's so many of us as well that have got the potential to do a lot more, earn a lot more, but we are stuck within ourselves because we are so risk averse. We are so scared of going out. And this goes out to Cameroonians, to Americans, to Indians, to everyone in the world. Once you are risk averse, once you can't come out of your shell to make the step, take that step wise, and that journey doesn't, you don't have to look at the top of it. When you're going up the stairs, if it's 1,000 steps and you look at the very top, you give up. You may even feel disorientated when just by height, and then you stand there and you go dizzy. But if you say, I'm going to put my head down and take one step at a time, you'll get to the top without even knowing that you've done it, and you spend less energy doing that, right?
Wow.
But once you look ahead mentally, your task, and then that tasking, that doubt and that confusion takes away, starts sucking away energy from you, and then you start losing energy, not because you've done any work, but just because you're thinking too much about something, about a challenge that you haven't faced yet.
Wow, fascinating. Vali,
So
again, I just want to pause again there because there is so
yeah,
much that you have also covered. And everybody who listens to the podcast, when they feedback, they get different messages from the conversation.
yeah,
What I see is a so much you've you have enlightened us about there. First, about being true to your own objectives, being true to your own life, and not following someone else's pathway.
Yeah.
And then also being flexible, so that when you're faced with a challenge and a struggle,
Mm.
being able to assess and look at what priorities are, what the likelihood of success is, and then choosing the right path that will lead you to a better place. And having that flexibility to pivot, as you said, you wanted to do
Absolutely.
medicine, but you realize actually it's not going to work here because you need to also support the family. You've got people that are dependent on you, and you need to help them
Yeah.
out. And it's not going to be a path that you
Yeah.
can follow. And then you've also talked to us, you also raised the importance of focus, of being sort of laser focused on your goals once you decide that that's what you want to do,
Yeah.
and keep
Yeah.
going and
Yeah.
working hard. And the role of mentorship. Well, you seem to be your own mentor. I must say, initially, you seem to be your own mentor, and you sort of get yourself into the mentor role for yourself. But then part of your business now, and part of the of Stepwise Careers is
Yeah.
mentoring other people and coaching other people
Stepwise. Yeah.
to actually do
Mm.
what you did for yourself, but actually giving them that support so they
Yeah.
can go into an interview with the training they've had and actually get the
Mm.
job. And
Mm.
so that's one of the things
Mm.
that came out. And you made me reflect on Stepwise as well, because I hadn't really it hadn't clicked. But you talked about Stepwise, and in my book From Struggles to Success, I also have a model, Dr. Emmanuel's 5 step model. It's a step model, and it's also stepwise
Yeah. I
about
think I've
how
read
you
that. Yes. Yeah.
tackle a
Yeah.
problem with building clarity,
Yeah.
commitment, be building collaboration, a plan, and then action. So stepwise, and it's exactly what
Yeah.
you described
Absolutely.
in. So it's, as I said, it's not by chance that I asked you to come here to the podcast and to be interviewed, because you can see the connection and the similarities that we have, and it's fascinating what you've just
Absolutely.
told us.
Absolutely.
So I
No,
interrupted
I
your
think,
flow though.
yeah,
Yeah. Go on. You were saying
yeah. So, where was it? So we're talking about just, how uh, that IT career was built, and how I modeled, the formative years back in Cameroon to champion not just what I'm doing now, but what I also intend to do. Because, like I've said before, growth is not something that we, especially when you are an aspiring person, when you are when you are a person with a vision, right? The one time you attain your vision is when you lie in that little casket, and that's what I said to myself, and they close the lid and either shove you in a furnace or put you a few feet down,
go
right?
down.
My
Yes.
vision is, every time my vision is a moving goalpost. Every time I think that I've hit it, I move it. And even sometimes when I'm about to get there, I move it so that I don't touch it. Because one thing of setting a vision is, yes, you realize it, but realizing it may be that plateauing, may give you that plateau effect, and then that plateau effect may lead to that snowballing effect. It's good to know that you've realized the vision, and to do this you have to set those achievable goals, right? And when those achievable goals, when those check boxes are ticked, then you know that you've realized it. Because in ticking those just in checking those tick boxes, or in ticking those check boxes, you are also realizing how far down you're going on those goals, and then you can begin to add to them. Because if I say I'll set myself 5 goals to attaining £1 million, and then before you know it, my daughter is doing something. She's reading a book. Oh no, what was she doing? And I said, oh, she was doing some editing on her phone. Caitlin, my youngest. And I said, oh, that's very difficult. And she said, oh, it's not difficult, that. I said, no, it's not difficult because you know how to do it, right? For someone who doesn't know, it's difficult. So once you've set yourself goals, and then you achieve it, it's very, very easy to say, oh, I've already achieved it, because,
You've achieved
and then someone sits and thinks, oh, how did you achieve that? Or what makes you, easily achieve that? Is because in achieving those goals, you put yourself in motion, you set yourself, you've encompassed yourself with, or you surrounded yourself with people that will nurture you, right? I said to people, you are the sum total of the five people you spend most of your time with, because colleague influence, cohort influence is really, really great. It has a huge impact on what we become. And if you're not a strong-minded person, you can only be swayed. Reason why I said I talked to someone to come and take on a career in IT, and they decided to go with someone, they stick within the care, and up to now they still wanted to turn around and want to come and do and do coaching, and for me to coach them onto the same role that I was trying to get them on about 15 years ago. So setting achievable goals, because again, some of the goals that we set ourselves could be finger in the air goals, and then we ended up not achieving, and then we have the negative impact of setting the goals in the first place,
it. Hmm.
right? So when I joined, going up the IT ladder, every time there's always something else that needs to be achieved. Every time there's something that I need, a new
New
valley
skill.
that I need to be.
Mm.
And so that reborning, that rebirth, every time I need to rebirth myself, is the driver of me. Because every time you rebirth yourself, then you have to start crawling again, standing on your 2 feet and falling, then eventually running. Then when you see that you're running, then you reborn again. Right. So every time you see that there's a growth spurt. I go through a growth spurt, maturity, and then I go down again. Because like I
I'm
say,
smiling. I'm
if I
smiling because
if I
you.
say
I'm
that
smiling, Bali, because you seem to, when you talk about the being reborn and that continuous process, I can see from your body language you enjoy it.
yeah,
And interestingly, not everybody does, but you seem to enjoy it. And one of the
absolutely.
things that I've also noticed when I observe people who have that skill of turning struggle to success is that they actually enjoy challenges because they become
Yeah,
better.
yeah,
And it's not, they don't get
yeah,
phased or frightened, or it's more of, this is part of life. This is what, bring it on.
yeah.
It's an opportunity for me to do something different, something better.
Fear,
Fear, it is not fear, is
absolutely,
I'm going to embrace it, and
absolutely.
I'm going to come out even better, and I'm
Yeah,
going to enjoy it actually.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
no,
fear
absolutely.
is a very chronic disease, Emma. It is. Fear is a very chronic disease that infests and infects a lot of us. And through fear, so many dreams have been left, so many aspirations, so many careers have been left in the gutters of fear. And once that fear kicks in, no matter what you do, I've had students who've come into Stepwise and go through the Scrum Master course, and we've gone through all sort of coaching. And as much as I can, and I keep saying this, I use the horse and water analogy. As much as I can feed you all the information that I can, I take you to the stream. Even if I was to pour the water in your mouth, I can control your neck muscles to swallow it. um, there were people that that there's a fear factor facing interviews, and I've worked out every magic on those particular people. It just gets to a point where you say you can't change these
You
ones,
can't.
right? And that's acceptable because as society, you can't change everyone. But then there are also people that come and within the first session of coaching, they go and they've got the interview, they've got the role straight away. And you see someone going from £35,000 to 75,000 a year within the space of working, sitting with me for 6 weeks, right? Life changing. And so that is the sort of, when I talk about being reborn, I'm a workaholic. I don't sit still. So when you ask me how I manage all of these things, and it's because I get up at 5:30. There's things that I need to do. I come downstairs. There may be some reading stuff that I need to do. There may be some prep. There's always one thing or another to do, and and I like that because maybe when I don't like to have a free mind. and a free mind would wander into space and bring unhealthy stuff, right? Again, because of all of this drive, all of these goals that I've set myself, I don't want no impurities in them, so to say. And all of this, I must say, all of this is, being a Christian, I must say, God is involved in it. Because someone said to me the other day, that if you the joy is when you put Jesus first, others in the middle, and yourself at the end. And is that aspect of, caring for everyone else but you. And this is something that I have. And this is something that probably came from my grandma. She would feed the whole village if she could, and then go hungry. And
Wow.
I'm like that. And I can see some of that in my children. That's, satisfying people. And sometimes some of these blessings come as a result of giving without expectation. Because once you get to your place where you're giving, there's so many delegates that I've worked with. And I say, even though the session is 5 sessions, I said to them, especially the ones that come by, verbal recommendation, I said, because X has recommended you, I'll take it upon myself to see that you get this role.
Right.
And I would give and give and give, sometimes in that comes and say, why are you so invested? Or especially when the delegate is of the opposite sex, it's like some other, I said, it's just the drive to try to get them to succeed, but they haven't paid
Mhm.
extra for it. Yeah, that's absolutely fine, darling, because the satisfaction, the fulfillment, first of all,
Getting
I'm
them
doing
through.
what I really want to do. And this is something that people tend not to, where some failures come in, because people decide at to take on careers or to take on a vision that is not self-fulfilling. And once it's not something that you enjoy to do, you wake up with aches trying to go and achieve it. And
Mhm.
once your body aches because you're waking up, you get up and you go, oh no, not again.
You abandon.
It's gonna be there's gonna be a time when the mind is overcoming the body, and
Mhm.
then you get up and you not go at all, and
Yeah.
that's that career. And then you have to go and start again.
Yeah. It has to come from the heart,
So
doesn't it? The heart has to drive it as
it
well.
has to come from the heart. It has to be what you enjoy doing, what you can do with the smile. Of course, we are humans, and the fatigue will come in, distraction will come in. You will get, like I said, life. It's life's journey. Life is an achievement, or life is a project, and we are the stakeholders of that project, and we have to manage those stakeholders by understanding what our strengths are. So I used the SWOT analysis before, what our weaknesses are, and what opportunities there are, and not just opportunities, and place ourselves to be prepared to welcome those opportunities when they do turn up.
To see them
I
as
was watching
opportunities,
the
because they
Bron
may
the
come and
Bron
you don't
series,
see
so
them, you don't take them. The opportunities may come and you don't
absolutely,
see them and you don't
absolutely.
take them.
Someone said, opportunity is when hard work meets preparation. That is when you get an opportunity. Because, like what you've just said, Emma, it may come and you not take it. Not because you don't say it, but because you're not prepared to take it. But because you haven't got the hard work that will require to make that opportunity achievable.
Mm.
Right. So your strengths, you understand your strengths as a stakeholder of this life's project, your weaknesses. Once you understand your weaknesses, you know what to go to and what not to go to. Be prepared for these opportunities and whatever threats there are. To be forewarned is before armed, they say. If you understand your threats, then you can know how to deviate yourself from them.
Mm.
Right. And all of this are, are stuff that would impact the vision that you set yourself. And this is, it's easier to talk about them, but when you've lived them and you experience them, then it's even
More
easier to
powerful.
actually explain, because everything I'll tell you is from life experience. It's something I've lived, right? And this is what I said to delegates. So
That's exactly what this podcast is about. Because as in life, we have struggles throughout. Some people use them, some don't.
yeah,
People who do well are
Yeah.
people who know how to use those struggles and those as opportunities to become better, stronger. They don't just get through
Yeah.
them, but they actually grow through them as a team or as an individual. And as you said, also with the owner of Starbucks, if you interview any
Yeah. Yeah.
person
I
you
was
think is
short. Yeah.
famous, successful, talk to them, you'll find their own story. And Bill Gates was the same. Nelson
Absolutely.
Mandela, same. All of them,
Absolutely.
you will find their own story. And so this skill is something which people need to learn really early. Some are good at it naturally, just like any skill,
Mm.
any talent. There's some people who, like Usain Bolt, is born sprinter, and he has to train a bit, but
Yeah.
he's already born. He was already born as his physique is already
Yeah.
so it helps him as a sprinter. The same thing with turning struggle to success. Some people do it naturally, but some have to learn it. But you can learn it, and the more you do it, the better you become. As you're saying there, experience. You can learn
Absolutely
from other
spot on.
people's experience and see what they've done, and as you're doing on this podcast, but you also have to apply it. You also have to
Mm.
use your own life experiences to propel yourself and become better, stronger, and more successful. I just wanted, Vali, for us to just switch tact a bit. We've talked about your about Stepwise Careers and what you do in terms of training, mentoring,
Yeah.
and coaching within IT and project management. We've talked about your job as an IT senior IT consultant. I just want us to spend a few minutes also just talking about family. And again, I reiterate that you've got three beautiful kids who are doing really well in school, also inspiring other children
Yeah.
with book writing, publishing books, and your wife also in India who is doing also exceptionally well with her career and also entrepreneur with her business, Eco. And so I wonder what your thoughts are about this day and age with children. We're bringing up children this day and age, and you've talked about your upbringing and how
Yeah.
the struggles you had in life at a young age and mom support and upbringing, how it made you the person you are now. Now, unfortunately, things have
Mm.
changed, or fortunately, things have changed, and our children don't always have those challenges that we had. They may have different ones, but how do we, as we bring up parents, and what are your thoughts and your experiences as we bring up children? How do we, as parents, make sure our children also develop that skill? Because you don't want them to develop that in university or when they get their first job and then something
No.
happens.
No.
So how do we
No.
do that, and what are your thoughts?
Well, bringing up children, especially in this developed world, is it's I wouldn't say it's a struggle, but it's a tough challenge. And the reason I wouldn't say a struggle, because a struggle sometimes you could, if the difference between a struggle in my book and a challenge is, you could, if you have a struggle, there's a potential that you could potentially, well, there's a potential that you may not overcome it. But if you have a
Yes,
challenge, most likely you'll find ways around it, right, or around them. So
that's exactly
bringing
what
the
I define a
children,
struggle
especially
as.
mine.
It's something, a struggle, something that you feel you may not overcome. Your heart sinks. You think, this might be it. That
Absolutely.
is a
You
struggle.
see, there's so much synchronism here, if that's even a word. Um, so when I think before I'll come and talk to, I'll just give you a background of them. So I mentioned in my intro that Kirsten was 10 and 11, Avon was 10, and I wrote this book. So Kirsten's book is about 30,000 words, and Avon's book is about 50,000. These are not just children's book; these are novels. That's that big, right? On Amazon and every book outlet. And the challenge. So, first of all, they started when the Anani proposed that, because they've been avid readers from birth, even from we used to read to them when they were still in the womb, and then they came out and they carried on this. We used to we spend more money on books than on toys and on clothes, right? And then their nanny proposed that they should enter the BBC 500 word competition. They went in and didn't win it, but they decided to take those 500 words and turn them into 1,000, right?
Wow.
And then their books came in. We self-published this, and this is again that that maybe it's the is a drive or that mental toughness or that resilience that I mentioned. We went into this journey and we we came across a crowdfunding campaign called Kickstarter. And Kickstarter is a scheme where you go in, you buy a package, and you can pay £7 and you get one book, or you pay £30 and you get six books, or whatever that is, right? And some people paid 100, and you can support that campaign. And what that means is when the campaign ends, you would have had guaranteed books bought
Wow.
because people have already subscribed to those, they already bought those books.
Mm-hmm.
But you had to have the full, when you go into the campaign, you have to set the amount that you want to achieve. And if your target was £5,000 and you achieve £4,999, all the money goes back to the backers.
Wow.
You don't get nothing. So you have to have, it's all or nothing. So we set out this campaign. We went into Kickstarter. One day our target was 5,500 to print both books, and that printing include talking with illustrators, with the editors, with the cover designers, the printing companies, and everything else. You've published, Emma. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And when we a few days before we hadn't hit it, one day before we didn't, and then for some reason, as God would have it, someone came in and we were £500 down. Someone came in and backed with £500.
Wow.
Till date, we've sent emails and begged that person to come up so we can just say thank you. That person never came up. And so on the back of that challenge, so it was a huge challenge, and and we finally overcome it through just hard work, talking to people, going out there in medias, advertising the campaign, and all of the things that come with it. So the books are eventually published. Now COVID hit. How do they market this? And then they came up with the idea, on the back of reading, to say that they want to create a book subscription where it will start with putting their book and any other authored book into the subscription box alongside some bookish treats, so that their readers for children 8 to 14. And yeah, on the back of COVID, that took off. And then they started writing short stories every month. They would write short stories of 2,000 word each to add to it. So just how hard work and it wasn't easy to get them. The idea of starting the book was really, really well received, but to mix that with, this is an 11-year-old and a 10-year-old, mix that with education, their normal fun time, and then writing, it soon became very onerous on them to try to get it out of the way. So yes, somehow
Wow.
between Inda and myself, we pushed them through it. Not really pushed them, we got them to see it. But yes, coming back to the challenges and this, I mean, I kind of talked about this because that one then just sink into how challenging it is bringing up kids. So there's no rule book, right? You can read all the books that are written about bringing up children, but no book that you read will be about bringing up your own child, because every child is unique and different in their own way, and the way they think, the way they go about things, the way they respond to you. So it's absolutely key. We come from a place where we are fortunate to have some values, to have some core background of how child upbringing can be, right? Having a balance between where we come from and what this society prevails is important on how the child comes out, on how the child, and how we firm up on that foundation. So what we do is we try to make them friends, right? We are absolutely friends with all of them, so that we talk, we come back and we talk to each other. But you realize that once the teen years kick in, all of a sudden there is a bit of you know Brad Fair, like you, as I say in French, like I'm wrestling, like I don't talk to you, like, you get the good morning, you get the monosyllabic answers. But what we keep doing is trying to, like I say, continuous improvement, trying to explain to them, talk to them the benefit of communication, the benefit of these things, the benefit of these values, and how, trying to mold them without being very persuasive. Because when you try, and I've tried this a few times, when you try to make sure that, to make them know that your idea is the idea. I remember, and this I quickly learned this when I was teaching maths. They were in year three, and I was teaching them long division, the way I learned from Cameroon. And they were like, they call it here bus stop. And they were like, Dad, that's not how Miss told us to do bus stop. Your way is not right. And I was like, darling, but Miss is telling you this because you eventually come to this and you get the same answer. No, Dad, this is. So I quickly thought, you know what? Let me learn the way that they're doing it in school now so that I can then go into that way and teach them more. So I believe in this concept of understanding them, getting the ideas that they come up with, because it can be very easy for the likes of ourselves to use the way we were brought up and try to enforce it because we think that those ways are the intrinsic ways of bringing up children. But the society, like you say, changes within, you know, tomorrow you may have the next social media app and it will changes completely the view of
Completely.
the world in every way, just like Facebook and the Twitter and the TikToks have done. So it's really understanding, sharing experiences, understanding what they're going through, and not being too persuasive, but also being friendly, but also being friendly enough to still maintain that I am dad and you're a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
It's very
And
tricky,
parent, yeah.
but it's one of those things that once you've established it and it is in place, it can easily just flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get the odd quirks, the odd, like everything else, the odd, nuances and fallout. But that's just like life. That's a way of life. So no direct
Fascinating.
answer your question, Emmanuel. No direct method of doing it. Try your own methods, but make sure that foundation, if you're a Christian, you're listening to the podcast and you're a Christian, let the foundation of your household be based on the foundation of God. Because we have realized that just by going to our church on Sunday morning, coming and having nightly prayers before bed, there's something that's quickly changing. And you could see friendship in schools, those friends quickly dropping off. For those in TikTok, sure, I just made quote, I mean, friends, sorry, those in podcasts, I said, those on podcasts, the friends in quotes quickly dropping off
Mm-hmm.
because they're now seeing those values that are expected of them that are not expected, that are not in the friends that they are with. And I mentioned the sum, the sum of the five total of the friends you spend your time with. And this is something I would tell them. You have to pick your friends, see if they've
Surround
got the
yourself.
same values as you. If the value, if the value pattern or the value style is not the same, then you know that you're trading on. But again, they would make their own mistake. We allow them time to make their own mistake. There are things that I genuinely see that are not going to work. I don't jump in at every time to correct. I wait. I say it once, then I wait until it fails. At that point, I don't get recognition. I
Right.
just I just get a long face. Why? Because they've now realized that what you said before has not worked, and then they learn the lessons from there, right? And and sometimes people have to fail in life to then actually
Yes.
experience what they've gone through to then get up and look at where they were to not come back there again.
That's was really great words of wisdom, and I like the statement you make there that we have to give them values, support them as parents, but also expect that they will
Yeah,
also fail and they will also learn. And they will also learn and
yeah,
develop the skill of turning a struggle into success. And the
absolutely,
journey, the
absolutely.
journey which you described of writing and publishing the books that the girls have published, Kirsten, Avon, and Caitlin, the journey, as you were describing the journey, I was just looking at all the things you mentioned before about being focused, having
Yeah,
flexibility, setting your own goals, growing, doing things stepwise, hard work, taking risks, not being afraid. And they have, through going through that process, learned the skill already, and they're developing it at a very young age. And so I ask again all our listeners, if you've got children and your children in the family, do the same. Make sure they listen to the podcast,
Yeah.
share the podcast amongst children as well. We said they learn this early. And also, I
Yeah.
would also say, also the book From Struggle to Success, you can also get them for your children. I'm really, with the conversation we had today, it really focused my mind even more about the importance of children learning the skill and learning it early, because you can see from your upbringing, and most of the people that I've interviewed the podcast have highlighted the same thing. And then now with the
Yeah.
girls and publishing, exactly the same, and just as an example. So it's really important that we
Yeah.
get our kids to learn this skill early, and the sooner they start, the better, like any skill and
And
any
and I think just
life
one
skill.
more thing, Emma. I
Mhm.
think it's yeah. I think it's sorry if I barged in. The line broke off a bit. I didn't know if you had stopped or not. Sorry if I interrupted. I think from parents of African origin, it's absolutely important that we are role models to our children, right? And this being role models involve making time, absolutely intentionally intentionalizing making time for our children, because we could easily be consumed by the activities of this side of the world. We can easily be consumed by stress. You go to work, you come back. As soon as you come in, there's a request from back home about someone in hospital. You're sitting there, maybe your children are going to paid school. You think of when the next school fee is going to come out. There's holidays, and the children are entitled to their holidays being planned, and then all of a sudden there's a request for you to send this. All of that, you're only one person. It does stress you, and through that stress, you can call a child once, and they will just be children and not answer the first time. The
Mhm.
next time, because of that stress, you're shouting at them, not because
Mhm.
they've done anything wrong, but
Mhm.
because you have stress as a result of something that is not
Mhm.
related to the
Mhm.
children
Mhm.
at all,
Yeah.
right? So there's that which we as parents need to compartmentalize our stress, compartmentalize our responsibilities, knowing that if we are at home, anything, it's difficult, but it's something that you have to train the mind to do,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? And then there is that. And then the other thing is to have a growth mindset. A lot of us are stagnating, not because we can't progress, but because we've decided not to. We had so many ambitions and so many aspirations growing up. There's no one who when was in primary school and secondary school and asked what do you want to be in the future, they say no, I just want to be like this. They always had something. They always
Mhm.
aspired to
Mhm.
be something. And even when they got to university, the challenges and where we find ourselves has meant that that dream has not been realized, but it doesn't mean that that dream is not there. And
Mhm.
it is never too late. Never too late,
Too late.
because you can keep going. The key is to keep going and keeping that hope alive, because that is the absolute. As long as you, I said before, you set your expectations, you set your goals, you action the goals, and then you drive those goals, but making sure that you leave room for
For, for
change.
for change, for growth.
Making sure that you leave room for change, because when the plan or the expectation was to derail or fail for one reason or another, you're not going to roll all the way back. Let your roll back point be where you last stopped. It shouldn't be 10,000 miles back. It should be where the last step was. So always, I'll bring my agile hat back on. Always make sure you do things in increments.
Mhm.
So get one increment, do it and finish it. And then so that if you have to roll back, you're only rolling back to that last increment. You're not rolling back to three increments behind.
Great. What a great note to bring the podcast to a close. Really inspirational note there of growth, continuous improvement, setting goals. You said at the beginning of the podcast that success for you is not a destination. It's not it's something you arrive and as you stop, you keep on going. It's a continuous
Yeah.
process, and that also
Yeah.
matches what you've just said to close. I'm also going to ask all our podcast listeners when we do the summary and the description of the podcast, we will also include a link for Stepwise for people who may want to access
Thank you.
Stepwise services, but also the link for the book for the girls. So if anybody also wants to access
Absolutely. Thank you.
the
Yeah.
books that the girls have published, it will also be in the description. It's been a it's been fascinating podcast conversation that we've just had. There's so much that people will get from it. As I sort of put some snippets of what I was getting from it, but everybody gets something different. And this is what it's about. It's about inspiring, motivating people who may be going through a struggle to use it in their favor. Don't be afraid, take risks. You can overcome, you can become better, stronger, and more successful, and take you to a better place. And you've just seen a
Absolutely.
description of Valentine Bauer's journey and where he is now. And as he said, this is not he hasn't arrived. There's much more to come, and it's a continuous process. So once more, Vally, real pleasure having you on the podcast. And I wonder whether you want to say something before I do the final close.
I just want to say it's been an absolute. Honestly, we could, now sitting here, we could talk, till the cows come home. It's been an absolutely pleasure. I've enjoyed every bit of it. And sometimes when you do these things right, and you don't really talk about them, then when you're presented with a situation like this, and the feeling as well, the notion that this could potentially help someone, and that it could help someone's growth, someone's journey. It could help a family. It's very satisfying, because there's nothing than giving back. In giving, you get even more in return. So it's been an absolute pleasure, Emma. Thank you, and this platform, for everything you do. I've listened to the other platforms, and I urge everyone. I said, when you listen to one of these, you would want to listen to all of them, because the experiences that come from there, honestly, if we were to put all of this into a book, it would be a bestseller in New York Times within an hour. The experiences are absolutely immense. And it just goes to show that as a people, as a nation, there is so much amongst us, right? There's so much that we can, if we only come together. I remember you saying, I think it was in your launch of your book, that you say when you walk alone, you walk quicker, you walk faster, but when you walk together, you go longer, something along those lines.
That's right.
If we were to come together, absolutely, and we could, honestly, we could build a world. So thank you for this platform. Thank you for the opportunity, and just for anyone who's listening on YouTube, on the podcast, I just want to say just a few tips that to success is not something that you get in one day. You have to do what you like. You have to build this growth mindset that we've been talking about. You have to develop mental toughness, because challenges will come, and how you deal with those challenges. And then you have to believe in yourself. Don't let anyone tell you that you're not what you are if you set that goal. But the key is to keep trying.
Keep
Keep
trying.
trying, because obstacles will come. And like they say, take those stones that are being thrown in your path to make a bridge and walk on. Don't return the stones, because the person throwing it, you don't know the state of mind or the situation. Then just look for growth opportunities. The world, we are in in an environment where there are so many opportunities of growth, right? Just look for growth opportunities, and then set those objectives, and then go out and drive to achieve them.
Great. Again, thank you so much. Wonderful conversation we've had, and it will inspire a lot of people. It will change lives, and this is what this podcast is about, changing lives. So, for all our listeners, we want to make this podcast go viral. So, keep doing what you're doing, like, subscribe, and share. And as you heard from today's podcast, also with children, get children to get to
Absolutely.
know about this podcast, listen to the podcast, and develop this skill early. With that, I want to thank all of you for joining, and I look forward to welcoming you at our next podcast. Thank you, and have a nice rest of the day. Good night. Bye bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
I'm going up high to reach the sky. No one can tell me no. I'm gonna be an eagle. I'm